21 The Shambhala lineage. The idea of lineage in the Shambhala teachings relates to one's connection with primordial wisdom. That wisdom is accessible and extremely simple, but also vast and profound. Making a journey of warriorship depends first of all on your personal realization of genuineness and basic goodness. However, in order to continue the journey, in order to tread the path of the four dignities and achieve authentic presence, it is necessary to have a guide, a master warrior, to show you the way. Ultimately, giving up selfishness or ego is only possible if you have a living, human example, someone who has already done so, and therefore makes it possible for you to do the same. In this chapter, we are going to discuss the notion of lineage in the Shambhala teachings, that is, how the complete realization of sanity can be handed down to a human being in the Shambhala world, so that he or she can embody that sanity and promote its attainment in others. So, in this chapter we are going to consider the qualities of the Master Warrior and how they are transmitted both to him and by him. Fundamentally, the notion of lineage in the Shambhala teachings is connected with how the wisdom of the cosmic mirror, which we discussed in part 2, is transmitted and continued in human life, human existence. To review briefly, the quality of the cosmic mirror is that it is unconditioned, vast open space. It is an eternal and completely open space beyond question. In the realm of the cosmic mirror, your mind extends its vision completely beyond doubt. Before thoughts, before the thinking process takes place, there is the accommodation of the cosmic mirror, which has no boundary, no center, and no fringe. As we discussed, the way to experience this space is through the sitting practice of meditation. As we discussed in Chapter 12, Discovering Magic, experiencing the realm of the cosmic mirror gives rise to wisdom, the wisdom of vast and deep perception, beyond conflict, which is called Draya. There are various levels of experiencing Draya. The primordial or ultimate level of Draya is experiencing directly the wisdom of the cosmic mirror. When you experience that wisdom, then, you are contacting the origin of the Shambhala lineage, the source of wisdom. In the first chapter of this book we discussed the myth surrounding the historical kingdom of Shambhala and the Shambhala rulers. As we discussed there, some people believe that this kingdom still lies hidden somewhere on earth, while others see the kingdom as a metaphor or even believe that it ascended to the heavens at some point. But according to the way in which we have been discussing the Shambhala teachings, the source of these teachings, or we could say, the kingdom of Shambhala itself, is not some mysterious heavenly realm. It is the realm of the cosmic mirror, the primordial realm that is always available to human beings if they relax and expand their minds. From this point of view, the imperial rulers of Shambhala, who are called the regent kings, are the inhabitants of the cosmic mirror. They are the primordial manifestation of the wisdom of vast mind, the ultimate wisdom of Draya. Therefore, they are referred to as ultimate Draya. Ultimate Draya has three characteristics. First, it is primordial, which as we have discussed, is not going back to the Stone Age or something prehistoric, but it is going one step beyond or before we ever think of anything at all. That is the state of being of the regent kings who occupy the cosmic mirror as their kingdom. The second quality is unchangingness. There are no second thoughts in the realm of the regent kings. Second thought refers to a flickering mind, not having confidence in the purity of your perception, so that your mind wavers and hesitates. Here there are no second thoughts. It is an unchanging realm, completely unchanging. The third quality of ultimate Draya is bravery. Bravery means you are not giving in even to any potential doubts. In fact, there is no room for any doubts whatsoever in this realm. So, when you contact the wisdom of the cosmic mirror, you are meeting the ultimate Drayas, the regent kings of Shambhala. Their vast vision lies behind all the activities of mankind, in the open, unconditioned space of mind itself. In that way, they watch over and protect human affairs, so to speak. However, this is quite different from the notion that the Regans are living on some celestial plane from which they looked down at the earth. Once having made a connection to ultimate Drala, it is possible for the primordial wisdom and vision of the Regan kings to be passed down to the level of human perception. As we discussed in Discovering Magic, the vastness of perception can be captured in simplicity, a single perception, on the spot. When we allow vastness to enter our perception, then it becomes Drala. It becomes brilliant and luminous magical. When we have this experience, then we are meeting what are called the inner Dralas. The inner Dralas are empowered by the wisdom of the cosmic mirror, the Regans, to manifest brilliance and elegance in this phenomenal world. The inner Dralas are divided into the mother and father lineages. The mother lineage represents gentleness and the father lineage represents fearlessness. Gentleness and fearlessness are the first two qualities of inner Drala. When someone is actually able to dwell in the world of brilliance and freedom from accepting and rejecting the world of experiencing Drala in all phenomena, then he or she automatically experiences tremendous gentleness and fearlessness in that space. The third quality of inner Drala is intelligence, or discriminating awareness, which binds together gentleness and fearlessness. With discriminating awareness, gentleness is not ordinary gentleness, but it becomes the experience of sacred world. And fearlessness goes beyond bravado to manifest elegance and richness in a person's life. So the basic sharpness of awareness binds gentleness and fearlessness to create a warrior's world of vast, but appreciative perception. Finally, the wisdom of ultimate and inner Drala can be transmitted to a living, human being. In other words, by realizing completely the cosmic mirror principle of unconditionality and by invoking that principle utterly in the brilliant perception of reality, a human being can become living Drala, living magic. That is how one joins the lineage of Shambhala warriors and becomes a master warrior, not just by invoking but by embodying Drala. So, the master warrior embodies the outer Drala principle. The basic quality of the master warrior is that his presence evokes the experience of the cosmic mirror and the magical perception in others. That is, his very being transcends duality on the spot, and thus he is said to have complete authentic presence. When the warrior students experience this overwhelming genuineness, it allows them and provokes them to go beyond their own selfishness, beyond ego, in an instant. This, I think, is a rather difficult concept to grasp, so perhaps we should talk in greater depth about the qualities of the master warrior, so that this becomes more clear. To begin with, the birth of the master warrior takes place in the realm of the cosmic mirror, where there is no beginning or end, there is simply a state of vastness. His realization, or his state of being, is not purely the result of training or philosophy. Rather, he has relaxed completely into the unconditional purity of the cosmic mirror. Therefore, he has experienced unconditional wakefulness, free from ego. Because he always has access to that unconditioned space, he is never subject to the confusion or sleepiness of selfishness at all. He is totally awake. And thus, also, the energy of the master warrior is always connected with ultimate Drala, the vast vision of the Regan kings. So he is free from confusion. Secondly, because the master warrior has completely identified himself with the lineage of wisdom of the Regan kings, he begins to develop great tenderness, great compassion, which is witnessing basic goodness in all beings. When the master warrior views the world around him, he knows that all human beings possess basic goodness and that they are entitled to realize the principle of their own genuineness, at least. And beyond that, they have the possibility to give birth to a universal monarch in themselves. Therefore, great generosity and great compassion take place in the mind of the master warrior. He finds that the great Eastern Sun has entered his heart completely, so completely that he actually manifests the brilliance of the great Eastern Sun, extending its light rays to sentient beings who suffer in the twilight of the setting sun. the Master Warrior sees the complete path of warriorship, and he is able to extend that path, provide that path, to warrior students, to any human being who longs to fulfill his or her precious human birth. Finally, the Master Warrior, out of his great compassion for human beings, is able to join heaven and earth. That is to say, the ideals of human beings and the ground where human beings stand can be joined together by the power of the Master Warrior. Then heaven and earth begin to dance with each other, and human beings feel that there is no quarrel about who possesses the best part of heaven or the worst part of earth. In order to join heaven and earth, you need confidence and trust in yourself. But then beyond that, in joining heaven and earth, you have to go beyond selfishness. You have to be without selfishness. If someone thinks, now I have it, ha ha, that doesn't work. Joining heaven and earth happens only if you go beyond an egoistic attitude. No one can join heaven and earth together if he is selfish, because then he has neither heaven nor earth. He is stuck instead in a plastic realm, an artificial realm, which is horrific. Joining heaven and earth comes only from being beyond desire, beyond your selfish needs. It comes from passionlessness, transcending desire. If the Master Warrior were drunk on his own authentic presence, then it would be disastrous. Therefore, the Master Warrior is very humble, extremely humble. His humbleness comes from working with others. When you work with others, you realize the need to be patient, to give space and time to others to develop their own understanding of goodness and of warriorship. If you are frantic and try to push basic goodness onto others, then nothing happens except further chaos. Knowing that, you become extremely humble and patient in working with others. You let things assume their own shape, in their own time. So patience is extending gentleness and faith to others all the time. You never lose faith in their basic goodness, in their ability to actualize nowness and sacredness, in their ability to become warriors in a world. The Master Warrior guides his students with patience, and he also provides gentleness, being without aggression. Then, he also guides his students by being true, being stable and solid. If truth were like a fluttering flag in the wind, you would never know which side you were looking at. So the idea here is that being true is being solid and completely stable, like a mountain. You can rely on the sanity of the Master Warrior. It never wavers. He is completely genuine. Because there is no fear in the Master Warrior's own state of mind or in his physical being, the process of helping others takes place constantly. The mind of the Master Warrior is thoroughly free from laziness. In extending himself fearlessly to others, the Master Warrior expresses intense interest in the activities of his students, from the level of what they have for dinner up to the level of their state of mind, whether they are happy or sad, joyful or depressed. So mutual humor and appreciation can take place naturally between the Master Warrior and the warrior students. But most important, in every activity of his life, in every action he takes, there is always magic, always. In whatever he does, the Master Warrior of Shambhala guides the minds of his students into the visionary mind of the radiant kings, the space of the cosmic mirror. He constantly challenges his students to step beyond themselves, to step out into the vast and brilliant world of reality in which he abides. The challenge that he provides is not so much that he is always setting hurdles for his students or egging them on. Rather, his authentic presence is a constant challenge to be genuine and true. Altogether then, the idea of lineage in the Shambhala teachings relates to one's connection with primordial wisdom. That wisdom is accessible and extremely simple, but also vast and profound. The way to despotism and corruption lies in clinging to concepts without access to a pure realm in which hope and fear are unknown. In the realm of the cosmic mirror, clinging to concept and doubt has never been heard of, and those who have proclaimed the true goodness, the innate primordial goodness of human beings, have always had access to this realm in some form. Over the centuries, there have been many who have sought the ultimate good and have tried to share it with their fellow human beings. To realize it requires immaculate discipline and unflinching conviction. Those who have been fearless in their search and fearless in their proclamation belong to the lineage of master warriors, whatever their religion, philosophy, or creed. What distinguishes such leaders of humanity and guardians of human wisdom is their fearless expression of gentleness and genuineness in behalf of all sentient beings. We should venerate their example and acknowledge the path that they have laid for us. They are the fathers and mothers of Shambhala, who make it possible, in the midst of this degraded age, to contemplate enlightened society. Afterward, in 1975, the Venerable Kajim Trungpa Rinpoche gathered a small group of students, myself among them, and introduced a secular discipline, which he called the teachings of Shambhala. He explained that this discipline, which we now call Shambhala training, was appropriate for all beings, regardless of the conditions of their birth, status, or previous beliefs. As devoted and keen students in the path of Buddha Dharma, we listened to these first presentations with mixed emotions. Although Trungpa Rinpoche had often introduced us to new topics and projects without warning, this vision of warriorship and enlightened society was so vast and profound that it was at once exciting and threatening. When Trungpa Rinpoche first presented the Buddha Dharma in the West, especially in North America, it was as if a lightning bolt illuminated a dark sky. Buddhism had been taught in the West for quite some time, but not until Trungpa Rinpoche's direct connection with the language and custom did the reality of Dharma become part of Western culture. This is not to say that the authentic Dharma had not been transmitted, nor that no previous contribution had been made to the establishment of Buddhism in the West. Many teachers, in particular Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, had spent their lives transmitting the ancient lineage of the Buddha to Western students. Because the ground had been prepared, the meeting of minds between Trungpa Rinpoche and his students and the Western world altogether was spontaneous and illuminating. The introduction of the teachings of Shambhala was likewise sudden and startling. Rinpoche himself was without hesitation or fear in presenting Shambhala wisdom as he was when he presented Buddhism to his Western students. In fact, he never seemed to make a distinction between Eastern and Western when discussing the nature of things. We began to see in him an entirely new dimension as a teacher. That was unexpected, to say the least. It was almost like discovering the existence of some lost treasure. When he manifested as the Dorje Tridao, the indestructible warrior, it was as though he were always seated majestically on a white stallion. His brilliance was uncontrived, impeccable, and elegant. He taught appreciation of ordinary things and introduced forms that in the world of modern casualness seemed outrageous. Being bred on the notion that informality equals relaxation, we resisted. But this way of working with the world was so uplifting, joyous, and delightful that it did not take any convincing to know this was the real way to be. One could be dignified and genuine with a sense of formality without being stiff or tight. The Dorje Tridao's way of being was an expression of respect for the world and for others. He could demonstrate this by the simple act of putting on a hat and coat, or by the way he handled a pen or a cigarette lighter. His level of appreciation for the most ordinary objects of life, the way he worked with his body, his environment, everything had presence, and because of that, everything demonstrated inherent goodness. In that way, he also taught natural hierarchy. He pointed out that the real warrior in the world understood how things are placed, used, and kept as an expression of the appreciation of basic goodness. He asked me to help design a way to present the Shambhala wisdom in an organized manner, so that people could share this experience. He and I began a collaboration with a group of students to develop the Shambhala training program. When I began to consider the implications of what he was presenting, especially the fact that he put a lot of responsibility on me to present these teachings, I knew I was faced with having to grow up to be genuine, to overcome hesitation. There was an element of fear, of wondering whether one could embrace a teaching as simple as basic goodness without reducing it to just another self-help philosophy. Having to present the Shambhala teaching, having to present ordinary wisdom over and over again and, at the same time, present it in a fresh and genuine way, was a tremendous challenge. What made me go forward was the reality of what the Dao was manifesting, the reality of warriorship. What he was saying, he was actually doing. The vision of a sacred world that he presented was unique, complete, and straightforward. However, it was obvious that this was no preordained plan, such as one finds in modern expositions of self-analysis, where everything is worked out and marketable. Developing the Shambhala training program was definitely not an easy task, but because of the self-existing wisdom of these teachings, it took shape and developed naturally, organically. Out of that process, our sense of mutual appreciation continued to deepen and grow. Although Trungpa Rinpoche was clearly presenting a challenge to us, he always exhibited the gentleness of a real warrior. He was completely patient and spacious in his attitude, trusting that we would come to our own personal understanding of warriorship. Most of all, I remember his willingness to allow us to experiment, to test our experience. He realized that we all had doubts, and he fielded all the questions that arose. He was unyielding without being intimidating, simply by the steadfastness of his conviction. Now I have more fully come to understand and appreciate the uniqueness of the Shambhala tradition and the ordinariness of Shambhala wisdom. That wisdom becomes apparent when, in just encountering these ideas or reading this book, one hears a language which is totally new and at the same time totally familiar. The wisdom of the Shambhala teachings presented by Trungpa Rinpoche has never before been heard in this world. Nevertheless, it is so familiar that it is recognizable as wisdom by people of any age or station in life. The teachings of Shambhala embody the best possible expression of human goodness that is inherent in every culture. At the same time, these ideas blend together easily with ordinary life. That is their unique quality. They are a straightforward and natural expression of the wisdom and dignity of life. Trungpa Rinpoche left these teachings for all of us. The degree of his generosity and caring for the world was enormous. He was not only the vanguard of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition in the West, but he also reintroduced the tradition of warriorship that had been forgotten. He lived 47 years, 17 of those in North America, and he accomplished so much and affected so many people in such a direct way. For 10 years he presented the Shambhala teachings. In terms of time and history, that seems insignificant. However, in that short span he set in motion the powerful force of goodness that can actually change the world. It will become more apparent in the years to come what a great effect his life had on all of us. Even at this writing, so soon after his death, the feeling of his short stay with us is penetrating and uncompromising. Those of us who carry on this tradition are compelled to do so because he showed us how to meet reality face to face, which he presented as the discipline and the path of enlightened warriorship. It is wonderful that he took time to train so many people in this discipline in order to ensure its continuity. However, this continuity still cannot be taken for granted because every moment is, as he would say, living in the challenge, and therefore at every moment we all renew our commitment to living. I hope these recollections will enable readers to have some feeling of what it was like to be present at a time when something profound was brought into the consciousness of the world. Speaking for myself as the co-founder of Shambhala Training, and for those who were closely involved in the beginning of this process, we are entirely dedicated to making the teachings of the Dao available to everyone throughout the world as much as we can, and to use all of our effort and energy and all of our life force to bring about the creation of enlightened society that we were shown. The kind of debt that I personally feel is to make sure that his vision and his teaching and the accuracy of his approach are not just perpetuated, but become part of the fabric of human culture. This is not simply the notion of trying to preserve the memory of a great man. He was not at all pretentious or concerned about such things. Rather, he constantly worked for everyone's benefit. Whether a situation was filled with tension or heavy with dullness or bubbling with passion or excitement, he always showed a clear example of how to meet the world with gentleness, humor, and fearlessness. This is the legacy he left us. We are dedicated to that spirit and that activity, the life of the Shambhala warrior who always gives 100% all the time. It is my wish and hope that this great teaching can spread throughout the world. Now is a time when even the most basic of human values, kindness and compassion, are lost in a sea of harshness. These teachings, more than ever, are needed to remind us of our inherent nobility. May the goodness of the great Eastern sun shine eternally, and may the confidence of primordial goodness awaken the hearts and minds of warriors everywhere. The British Regent Sultan Calm Chilling, Barnet, Vermont, 27 November 1987. Resources